Alright, so now that we've done all of the sound design, I deleted all the MIDI for the drop, and we're going to make this drop from scratch. Basically arrange it now that we have all of our sounds. So what I'm going to start with first is I'm going to start with these downbeat growls. So we're going to have two different instances of these downbeat growls, and I'm just going to automate things back and forth. So I'm going to make a 2-bar MIDI clip, and I'm going to go down to F0 and just make a quarter note right there. So that's what it should sound like. And you know, if your project isn't mixed as well, it's fine. Just try to adjust the levels the best you can. I actually put a utility up here, so let's delete this. I'll show you how I did this. Because my basses were a little low, so what I did was I took a utility and I put it on the entire bass group. And I'm basically just going to drag across the entire drop up until the breakdown. And I'm just going to drag this utility here. Let's click on the utility gain right there. And I'm just going to drag it up a few decibels. So that's a lot. So let's drag it around 5. Just so we're boosting those basses, and we'll get into mixing everything down later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this MIDI clip I made right here and I'm going to duplicate it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the patch and I'm going to go to my effects. And I'm going to go to the filter and click on the cutoff. So that is now being in the automation window. And I'm just going to select this and drag it up. So now we have two different growls. Just by automating that quick thing, we have this and we have this. And also don't forget, make sure I took my basses off of sidechain mode just to do the sound design. So make sure you re-add it or reroute it to the sidechain. So there's our two different drop basses or our down basses right there. So let's go ahead and duplicate both of those. So let's go ahead and do this gurgle bass right here. I'm going to make another 2-bar clip right here. And let's go down to F0. And I'm going to make a short little 8th note right there. And then I'm going to hit duplicate. And I'm going to make a quarter note there, and a quarter note there. So now we have... Alright, now let's go in and we're going to duplicate this. And again, and again. And for this last one, we're going to move this one over. Make it a 8th note like before, and then duplicate it and add a quarter note. Alright, so that's the sound we're going to be rolling with. So let's do a little bit of automation to this. So we're going to go to our LFO rate. If you don't see that like this, that's fine, because go into Serum and then click on LFO rate as your macro. And if you don't have that, then let's make that right now. So put your macro knob on the LFO rate for LFO1, and then hit Shift Option and click to make it unipolar, and then just drag this down. So now we're going between 8th notes and quarter notes. So click on that so we can bring it up in the automation window, and hit B to draw a pencil in, and we're going to do that. So, and then what we're going to do for the second one is draw up just like that. And then when it gets halfway through this, we are going to draw up again. So, and then we're going to keep going like this. So, and then let's just duplicate this automation over. So I'm going to hit that plus to drop it down, then select the automation, and then hit Command D. And then we're going to go over here and do the same thing. So, and then halfway through, bring it back up like that. So, alright, so now we're going to need to do some pitching, because this sounds a little bit boring. You're going to want to go in and make sure that your down pitch bend range is set to -1, and then click on the pitch bend. And you'll see when you click on something, it comes up in the automation window. So click on the pitch bend, and we're going to start by automating this up. So hit B to bring up your pencil, and we're going to draw this box up right here. So it's going to go up, and then for this last one, we're going to draw it down. Alright, so I'm going to make a point right here, and I'm going to bring that over, And then I'm going to delete that point and then delete that point as well. And I'm just going to bring it like this. So now we have. All right, and that is the pattern we're going to keep. So let's hit that drop down and we'll select this and hit duplicate. So let's listen to it all together. And I just bumped that up a little bit of volume. And then also there is a pre-drop that we need to do as well. So I'm going to make a new MIDI clip and I'm going to go down to F0 and make 4 of those quarter notes. And then I'm actually going to take an auto filter and I'm going to filter this up from here. All right. All right, so that is gurgle. Now we're going to do Ebola. So I'm going to make a 1-bar MIDI clip from 34 to 35 and hit Command-Shift-M. And then we're going to go down to F0 again. And since this is going to start on the 34.2, we're going to need to start on the 1.2. So I'm basically going to make a quarter note here, followed by an 8th note. I need to slide this all back. And I made this way too slow. So it's actually going to be an 8th note into a 16th note. And it's going to happen 3 times. So this is going to be the pattern. That makes a lot more sense. So then what we're going to need to do is we are going to take the LFO rate and we are going to turn it up for these shorter ones. And let's see how this sounds if we make it even faster. I think that sounds a little bit better. So we're going to turn the rate up to 1/4 and we're just going to make our LFO rate like that. Just so these ones are a little bit quicker. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to our pitch bend and we're going to modulate it very similar to the gurgle bass. And we're going to make sure that this pitch bend range is -1 down. So let's click on the pitch bend wheel and we're going to hit B and make this box go down. And we're going to click on that point and then we're going to hit B and make that go up. So we have this. And that is going to be our pattern. So let's select and duplicate 3 times. And the only thing that's going to be different is we're going to go into our serum and go to this octave macro that we made and click on that. And we're going to box that up for the second time around. So. All right, so now we only have 2 more basses to go. So this bass is not one that we made, so I'm going to add this now by making a new MIDI track. And I'm going to open up Serum, and we are going to select the bass squarey throat. And all this is going to be is a little 8th note blip at 40. So we're going to go down to F0 and just make an 8th note. So let's call this throaty. And we're going to group that to bass bus 1. And then the last one we have is this destruction bass. So we're going to make a 1/2 bar MIDI clip right there. And then we are going to type in F0 and drag it the length. So that is going to be our first half of the drop. So let's listen all the way from the build. Alright, so it sounded really good, and I actually just dropped this utility gain down about 2.5 decibels just because it was really loud, and I know that we're going to have to put in sub after we write this drop, so I'm going to want to leave space for that. But anyway, that's drop 1.1 to 1.2. Now let's get into the second half. All right, so now we're going to start with the second half of the drop. So let's go in. We're going to start with this Melozyne down bass. So I'm going to make a MIDI half bar long and go down to F0 and make this full out. And let's listen to this. All right, so that's really low. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to take this pitch and we're going to pitch it all the way from down to up. And I went in and I just changed this real quick. So go into LFO 1 and I had this like this. So you can have it like that or change it to pretty much however you want. I like it like that. I think it sounds a lot cleaner than this. So I would go in and, you know, it's the same exact sound pretty much. It's just I changed the LFO over here. It just sounds like a better down growl to me. So, but you know, it's all to preference. So it's not going to like make or break the track at the end of the day. And I also put an EQ on and just high shelved it a little bit. All right. So for the fork out, I did I saved the MIDI and I'm going to import that in because this MIDI is kind of complicated and I just want to make sure it's right, but I'm going to go ahead in and explain it. So let's delete everything else. So this is our MIDI. All right, so this is the pattern right here. So we have it happening 2 times. All right, so we have 2 macros that we set up. So let's go ahead and automate those. So I'm going to go in and click on the octave, and I'm going to hit B to pencil, and I'm going to pencil up the second half. And then I'm going to go in and click on vibrato, and I'm just kind of wing it and draw a vibrato pattern. So I want this one to be up a little bit, so I'm going to hit B and sort of bring it up. And then I want this long one to definitely be up. So but I don't want all of these to be up as much, so I'm going to drop it back down. And then I'm going to go ahead and just copy some automation. So I'm going to copy this too and put it right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this and put it on the second half. So now we have. So what we're going to do for the down growls now is we are going to take this third down growl or the first one, and we are going to copy it and duplicate it 3 times. So we have this Melozyne or whatever it's called going first. So then what I'm going to do is once this second downbeat growl hits, I'm going to actually take this gurgle right here and I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to paste it right here, right before the snare on 45. So 45.2.3. So it's. I'm actually going to turn down this as well. This is really loud. And so what I'm going to do now is we're going to do this squawk. So I'm going to make a 2-bar MIDI right there. And we're going to start this on the 0.2 and do 16th notes at F0. So I'm going to keep duplicating all the way across until I get to here. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take that pitch knob that we made and I'm going to automate this like this. So from 43 to 43.3, I'm going to make 2 points and I'm going to make a point in the middle and drag it up to around 74. And then I'm going to drop it down and then I'm going to select this and duplicate it across. So then I'm going to duplicate it again and I'm actually going to cut off this last part at 48 because that's where we're going to put the fill back into the breakdown. And then I'm going to go into my preset and click on octave. And I'm going to turn up the octave macro for the second half. All right. So that's sounding really good, and we only have one more sound to go for this part, and that is this grainy growl. So right here on the 0.3, we are going to make a MIDI note at F0. And then we're actually going to pitch bend this. So let's go in and we're going to click on our pitch bend wheel, and we're going to pitch bend this down. All right, so that is it for drop 1.1 and 1.2. Let's play it back from the build up. All right, so sounded really awesome. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add sub, and then I'm going to throw a master on. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because the drop is definitely the most full and loudest part of the song, and you don't want to throw a master on before you hit to that point of the song. So once we have the sub in, the song will be completely filled up as far as the elements go for the drop, and then we're going to start mixing and mastering it just right there, just so we see where we stand, and then we can continue writing the song and kind of mixing and mastering as we go. All right, so now that we arranged the drop, I'm going to add some sub, and then I'm just going to do a little bit more mixing down, just because we just did a rough mix. So we're going to add the sub and then mix and master a little bit, just because the sub is such a huge part of this, you know, the track. So we're definitely going to need to add that before we start diving into the mixing and mastering. But for the sake of this, I just saved the sub drop MIDI, but I'll go ahead and explain this just because I didn't want to type all of this in. But basically what this is this sub is just following the pattern. So if you took all of the MIDI from the basses and you just put it all on the same line, this is what this is. So the only time this changes is when you get to the this forked out lead right here. This sub is just following the pattern of that forked out lead. So that's pretty much it. These are all F notes right here, and it's following the rhythm of the basses. And then when it gets to this forked out lead, it follows the melody as well. So let's listen to this, and this is just me slapping the bass on it. So yeah, it sounds really, really good. So then the other thing I want to do is I just want to take a look at these side chains. And the thing I'm noticing right now is that we do not have a side chain for the snare. So I didn't want to worry about that while we were doing the basses, because that's not a part of sound design or arranging the basses. So this is part of mixing and mastering. So I want to add this side chain, and I am going to set it to the main snare. So let's go ahead, and I just duplicated this side chain for the intro snare, and I'm going to set it to the main snare. So let's listen to just what we have, just like that. And that is way, way, way too much sidechain right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up sort of like the kick, how we have the EQ. So I'm going to select this band, and I'm just going to play around with this real quick. And that's a lot of sidechain and way too much. So let's bring the threshold up. All right, so that sounds a lot better. So we did sort of like what we did for the intro snare, except we took this and we EQ'd it so the signal is just a little part at the bottom. Let's see if we can do that. That's just too much. There's too much high frequencies, and there's not that many low frequencies in the snare. So we're just gonna do this low pass and set the frequency all the way down so we can get a much shorter side chain. All right, so I'm gonna set the attack all the way down, the release at 7, and the ratio around 3.7 to 4. All right, so now we're side chained, we have the sub. Let's move on to the master.